Welcome, dear listener. As the day winds down and the hush of evening wraps gently around you, let us drift together into the long, slow rhythm of the past. Tonight, we begin a quiet journey, not through the bright triumphs of history's grand battles or the echo of glory, but through the softer, sleepier folds of time that shaped one of the world's most enduring civilizations. The Roman Empire. You need not stay awake. In fact, you're not expected to. Your only task now is to breathe slowly, rest deeply, and allow the ancient world to unfold around you. We won't rush, we won't shout. We'll simply observe, like silent travelers strolling along the worn stones of a Roman road. Somewhere between dreams and memory. The Roman Empire, a name carved into the bones of Western history, not just a nation or an army, but a long, evolving story of farmers, builders, poets, slaves, emperors, and gods. It spans more than 1,000 years, from humble beginnings in a small village by the Tiber River, to the might of Caesar's legions stretching from the damp shores of Britannia to the deserts of Arabia. But tonight, we will tell this story not as a thunderous tale of conquest, but as a gentle narrative of people, their daily lives, their architecture, their superstitions, and their way of thinking. We'll feel the cool marble of a temple under our fingers, hear the faint scratch of stylus on wax tablet, and smell the bread baked in Roman hearths. This is sleep learning. Your mind will listen while your body rests. The flow of history will soothe, not stimulate. And as we drift across centuries, we will pause, reflect, and breathe with the people of the past. So, if you're ready, close your eyes, take a slow breath, let go of today. And now together we begin at the very beginning, with the myths of Rome's founding, and the long road that led to empire. The story begins, as many great civilizations do, in legend. According to Roman mythology, the city was founded in 753 BCE by Romulus, a figure raised, it is said, by a she-wolf in a wild and sacred forest. His twin brother Remus fell by his hand in a quarrel over where the new city should be built. And so, with fratricide as its first act, the eternal city of Rome was born. Of course, myths are not history, but they tell us much about how Romans saw themselves strong, wild, forged in hardship. The truth, as we trace it through archaeology and early records, begins more modestly. Picture the banks of the Tiber River, green and marshy, home to small huts made of wood and straw. Around the 8th century BCE, scattered tribes of Latin peoples began to settle in what is now central Italy. The hills of Rome, the Palatine, the Capitine, the Aventine, were not yet covered in marble but in rough pastures and primitive dwellings. Livestock grazed where emperors would one day walk. These early Latins were farmers, herders, and traders. They grew wheat and barley, raised pigs and goats, and bartered with their Etruscan neighbors to the north and Greek colonists to the south. The Etruscans, with their advanced metallurgy, religious rituals, and city-states, had a profound influence on the nascent Romans, from their clothing and alphabet to their temple architecture. By the 6th century BCE, Rome was ruled by a line of kings, some possibly of Etruscan origin. These monarchs oversaw the first major urban projects, the draining of the marshy Forum Valley, the building of defensive walls, and the establishment of religious institutions. But the Roman people, fiercely proud even then, grew restless under royal authority. In 509 BCE, according to Roman tradition, the last king, Tarquin the Proud, was overthrown. His cruelty and the shameful behavior of his son sparked a revolution, and from this point forward, Rome would never again allow a king to rule. Instead, they created a new political system, the Republic. The Roman Republic was an ambitious experiment in governance. It blended elements of monarchy with elected consuls, aristocracy through the Senate, and democracy via popular assemblies. At its heart was the idea of res publica, the public thing, the Commonwealth, a system that belonged to the citizens. But this republic was no egalitarian utopia. Power remained concentrated in the hands of the patricians, wealthy land families who traced their lineage to the founding of the city. The plebeians, or commoners, had limited influence and few protections. Over time, the plebeians fought for and slowly won greater rights, including the election of tribunes, who could veto laws harmful to the people. As we drift through these early centuries, we find Rome engaged in constant warfare, not conquest for glory, but a slow expansion through survival. Surrounded by rival tribes, the Romans fought for territory, for trade routes, and for security. Victories were followed by clever diplomacy. Defeated peoples were often absorbed rather than destroyed, offered partial citizenship and a place in the Roman system. By the 3rd century BCE, Rome controlled much of the Italian peninsula. Roads, straight, precise, enduring, began to connect towns and outposts. Latin became the common tongue. The Roman ideal of discipline, order, and civic duty was taking hold. In these formative years, Roman society developed the institutions that would shape its empire. The Senate, an advisory body of elders, guided foreign policy and finances. The consuls, elected annually, wielded military and executive power. Checks and balances were built in, but the system relied heavily on tradition, honor, and an elite sense of duty called mos maiorum, the custom of the ancestors. Life for ordinary Romans was modest but structured. In the countryside, farmers rose with the sun, tilled their fields with wooden plows, and honored household gods known as lares and pinates in the towns. Artisans carved pottery, forged tools, and ran small shops. Education focused on rhetoric, farming, law, and the stories of Roman greatness. Children learned early that to be Roman was to serve in war. In the forum, in the family, fathers held absolute authority under the principle of paterfamilias, while women managed households, religious rites, and sometimes wielded quiet but substantial influence. As the Republic matured, Rome would face its first great rival, one that would transform it from a regional power into a global force. But before we meet Carthage in the fires of the Punic Wars, let us pause and imagine a quiet Roman village at dusk. Smoke rising gently from hearths, the sound of sandals on cobbled streets, a vendor calling out his wares, a father reciting Virgil by lamplight, a child asleep under woven blankets, dreaming of gods, wolves, and distant glories. Let us rest there, in that quiet moment before empire, before ambition, before the world changed. The morning light spills gently across the tiled rooftops of Rome. In the forum, senators in their white togas gather, voices hushed under the weight of empire in making. For now, Rome is still a republic, but it is growing restless. Ambition stirs quietly in the shadows, and across the sea, in a wealthy city called Carthage, another power is stirring. 2. The Punic Wars, a series of 3 epic conflicts between Rome and Carthage, would change the shape of the Mediterranean world forever. But tonight, we approach them not with the roar of battle, but with the hush of understanding. These wars, though brutal, are also the story of diplomacy, endurance, and the slow spread of Roman influence across the sea. Carthage was a Phoenician colony founded centuries before Rome even existed. By the 3rd century BCE, it had grown into a mighty maritime empire. Its sails spotted from Spain to North Africa, its harbors filled with spices, metals, and slaves. While Rome controlled the land, Carthage ruled the waves. The First Punic War began in 264 BCE over a small island, Sicily. It was a rugged, fertile land, rich in grain and strategic value. When a dispute between local factions erupted, both Rome and Carthage were drawn in. What followed was a long and bitter struggle, not just on land, but at sea, where Rome had little experience. But the Romans, adaptably studied captured Carthaginian ships and built a fleet of their own. They introduced a boarding device called the corvus, a sort of gangplank that allowed them to turn naval battles into infantry fights. Their specialty. After more than 2 decades of conflict, Rome emerged victorious. Sicily became its first province. Carthage paid heavy reparations, and Rome learned it could project power beyond the Italian peninsula. Yet peace was temporary. The Second Punic War is perhaps the most famous, and for good reason. In 218 BCE, a young Carthaginian general named Hannibal Barca launched one of the most daring military campaigns in history. Instead of attacking Rome by sea, he crossed the Alps with an army that included elephants. Picture it now: the mountains, the narrow passes, the tired soldiers bundled in animal hides. The air is thin, the beasts lumber forward, confused by the cold. And yet, Hannibal makes it through. He would go on to win stunning victories at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae, where Roman legions were nearly annihilated. Hannibal moved through Italy like a shadow, undefeated for years, and yet, he never took Rome itself. Why? Because the Romans refused to surrender. They adopted a strategy of attrition, avoiding large battles and instead targeting Carthage's allies. Meanwhile, a Roman general named Scipio Africanus sailed to North Africa and defeated Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE. That the Second Punic War ended with Carthage crippled and Rome ascendant. Spain became Roman. Wealth flowed in silver, slaves, grain, and ideas. Rome was no longer just a regional republic. It was the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean. But there was still one war left, the Third Punic War. Shorter and far more brutal. Began in 149 BCE. Carthage, though weakened, had begun to rebuild its economy, something Rome could not abide. Roman senators, led by Cato the Elder, demanded destruction. Carthago delenda est. He famously repeated, Carthage must be destroyed, and it was. After a siege, the city was burned to the ground. Survivors were sold into slavery. Salt was said to be sown into the soil. Though this may be legend, with Carthage gone, Rome now controlled nearly all the lands bordering the Mediterranean. Greece, Egypt, Asia Minor, all would soon feel Rome's presence. But expansion came at a cost. As wealth flowed into Rome, inequality deepened. Aristocrats bought up vast tracts of land, forming latifundia or plantation estates, worked by imported slaves. Small farmers, the backbone of the early republic, were pushed into poverty. Cities swelled with displaced rural poor. Grain prices fell. Old traditions began to erode. In the Senate, powerful families competed not for the good of the republic but for personal glory. Military leaders like Scipio and later Marius and Sulla gained popularity with the masses and the legions. Rome was changing and fast. But let us slow our pace and imagine for a moment a Roman town at twilight. The taverns are humming softly. Oil lamps flicker along the narrow streets. Soldiers return from foreign service, their sandals dusty, their eyes distant. A father tells his son about Hannibal, the fear, the waiting, the pride in survival. Somewhere in the distance a temple bell rings. The Punic Wars are over. The Republic is rich, but beneath the surface, cracks are forming. In the next chapter, we will meet the generals who would shake the Republic to its core, and a man named Julius Caesar, whose ambition would redefine Rome forever. But for now, rest. The fires of empire burn low. Let your mind wander through quiet marble streets, past fountains and forums, under the soft Roman stars. The Republic, though outwardly strong, is trembling beneath the weight of its own victories. The Senate still meets, the laws still pass, the people still cheer in the theaters and gather in the forums. But a quiet change is underway. The old values of simplicity, service, and shared governance are fading. And into this moment of quiet crisis steps a man named Gaius Julius Caesar. He is born in 100 BCE into a patrician family, one with ancient roots but little recent wealth. From a young age, Caesar is ambitious. He studies rhetoric in Greece, reads philosophy, and moves easily through Roman society. He is charming, shrewd, and fearless, a man who understands both power and spectacle. As a young politician, Caesar earns favor with the people. He throws lavish games, defends the rights of debtors, and speaks with silver-tongued precision. He climbs the political ladder quickly, quaestor, aedile, praetor, all leading to the highest honor, consul. But it is through war that Caesar cements his legacy. In 58 BCE, he is given command of Roman forces in Gaul, what is now France and Belgium. Over the next 8 years, he leads a brutal, relentless campaign. He conquers tribes, builds roads and bridges, and writes detailed commentaries, Commentari de Bello Gallico, to inform and impress his Roman audience. Imagine Caesar now crossing rivers under moonlight, dictating dispatches by torchlight, wrapped in a soldier's cloak, always watching, always calculating. His victories make him wildly popular with the people and deeply feared by the Senate. By 49 BCE, his term in Gaul is over. The Senate orders him to return to Rome without his army. Caesar hesitates. To obey would mean loss of protection and possibly arrest. To disobey would mean civil war. He chooses war. On a quiet night in January, Caesar crosses the Rubicon River, the northern boundary of Italy. It is a symbolic act of defiance. Alia iacta est, he is said to have whispered, but die is cast. Rome descends into chaos. His rival Pompey the Great flees the city. Over the next 4 years, Caesar wages war across Italy, Greece, Egypt, and Spain. Cities burn, armies clash. The Republic tears at the seams. In 48 BCE, at the Battle of Pharsalus, Caesar defeats Pompey decisively. Pompey flees to Egypt, where he is betrayed and killed. Caesar follows and becomes entangled in the dynastic struggles of the Egyptian court. There, in the shadow of the Nile, he meets Cleopatra VII. She is young, brilliant, politically astute, and eager to reclaim her throne. Caesar supports her claim, and together, they form a powerful alliance. The relationship produces a child, Caesarion, but Caesar does not stay. His destiny lies elsewhere. He returns to Rome in triumph. The Senate names him dictator for life, a title that echoes too closely the monarchy they once destroyed. Some hail him as a hero, others see a tyrant in disguise. In public, Caesar is generous. He reduces debts, reforms the calendar, introducing the Julian calendar, expands citizenship, and embarks on public works. But in private, discontent grows. Senators whisper, daggers are sharpened. And on the Ides of March 44 BCE, as he enters the Senate chamber, Caesar is surrounded. Among the conspirators is Brutus, a man Caesar considers a friend. Et2, Brute, he says, or so legend tells us. As the knives fall, he dies beneath the statue of Pompey, the man he once defeated. Rome is stunned. The assassins hope to restore the Republic, but instead, they unleash more chaos. In the vacuum of power, 3 men emerge: Mark Antony, Caesar's trusted general; Lepidus, a lesser ally; and Caesar's grandnephew and adopted son, Octavian, just 18 years old. Together they form the Second Triumvirate and begin a campaign of revenge. Brutus and Cassius, the lead conspirators, are hunted down and defeated at Philippi. The Republic is lost. All that remains is to decide who will rule next. Mark Antony aligns himself with Cleopatra. Their romance becomes legend, passionate, political, dangerous. But in Rome, Octavian wages a campaign of propaganda. He paints Antony as a traitor to Roman values. Seduced by an Eastern queen. In 31 BCE, at the Battle of Actium, Octavian forces defeat Antony and Cleopatra's navy. The lovers flee to Egypt, where, facing defeat, they each take their own lives. Octavian returns to Rome alone, victorious. And here, at last, the Republic truly dies. No more consuls with equal power. No more senatorial pretense. Octavian, now styled Augustus, becomes the first emperor of Rome. But before we move forward into the empire, let us pause here. Let us walk quietly through the forum in twilight, its colonnades still echoing with Caesar's speeches. The marble steps are worn smooth by sandals. Laurel leaves drift in the breeze. A statue stands in shadow, not of a god, but of a man who changed the world and paid the price. Rest now. Let the noise of war settle. Let the words of the past drift away like ash in the wind. When we return, Rome is no longer a republic. It is an empire, grand, gilded, and ruled by emperors whose power is absolute. It is the year 27 BCE. Rome no longer pretends to be a republic. The Senate still meets, but its voice is ceremonial. The true power lies with Augustus, formerly Octavian, now the first emperor of Rome. He does not call himself a king. That word remains taboo, but he holds absolute authority under titles like princeps, or first citizen, and imperator, or the commander. And under his calm and calculating rule, something extraordinary begins. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace that lasts for over 2 centuries. A rare and radiant calm stretches from the misty hills of Britannia to the sun-baked sands of Egypt. Roads are paved. Aqueducts hum with flowing water. Borders are fortified, but inside them, commerce flows and cities grow. Rome reaches the height of its size and perhaps its soul. Let us walk slowly through a Roman city during this age. Let your mind paint the picture. The streets are alive with sound, but never overwhelming. Vendors call softly beneath linen awnings. The scent of baked bread mingles with warm olive oil and crushed herbs. Children skip over mosaic-tiled thresholds. A senator in a purple-bordered toga nods to a passing equestrian. His sandals silent on the stone. At the center stands the forum, the city's heartbeat. Temples with marble columns reflect the midday sun. A scribe dips his stylus in ink, drafting contracts for merchants. Nearby, a bronze statue of Augustus gazes outward, calm and eternal. Above, the aqueducts, those grand arches of engineering, carry water from distant hills. The fountains never cease. In the public baths, citizens from all walks of life cleanse body and spirit, discussing philosophy, politics, and the day's weather as they pass from hot to cold pools. That, for many, is Rome, but life under the Pax Romana is not the same for all. In the countryside, vast estates called latifundia spread across the land, worked by enslaved people and poor laborers. Olive groves shimmer in the wind. Grapevines climb stone walls. Farmers rise with the sun, stooping beneath fig trees, their hands rough from harvest. In the provinces, Roman roads stretch like veins across the empire, linking Gaul, Hispania, Dacia, Judea, and beyond. Local languages remain, but Latin spreads. So do Roman laws, architecture, and customs. Governors are appointed. Forts are built. Legionaries marry local women and settle down. Citizens by blood and blade. Let us now visit a villa in the countryside, the home of a Roman noble here. Life flows with rhythm. The atrium greets guests with an open roof and pool below, capturing rainwater and reflecting the sky. Slaves move silently with trays of fruit and wine. The master studies scrolls, perhaps Virgil's Aeneid, or Ovid's Metamorphoses, while the children learn Greek from a hired tutor. Meals are simple but elegant. Lentils with coriander, roasted fish, honey-dipped dates. A lyre plays softly in the garden, where laurel trees bend in the breeze. The moon is rising. Lamps are lit with oil and flame. Outside the villa walls, crickets hum in the grass. Yet, even now in this peace, the empire remains watchful. On the northern frontiers, along the Rhine and Danube, legions keep vigil. Their camps are orderly, with walls, barracks, mess holes, and temples. Soldiers drill daily, not just for battle, but for discipline. Many will never see Rome itself, but they carry its banner. Some write letters home, preserved even now on wax tablets. The wine is poor, but the bread is good, writes one. I miss the fig trees of Capua. My service ends in 7 winters. The emperors of this age are varied, but many are capable. Tiberius, the reluctant heir to Augustus, governs well but grows reclusive. Claudius, once mocked for his stutter, expands the empire into Britannia. Trajan, a soldier emperor, stretches Rome to its greatest territorial reach from the sands of Arabia to the forests of Germania. Under Hadrian, the empire consolidates. He builds walls, not to expand, but to define. Most famously, Hadrian's Wall cutting across northern Britain marks the edge of Rome's world. Beyond this, the stone seems to whisper, lie barbarians, wild and untamed. In the city of Rome itself, construction flourishes. Temples to Jupiter and Mars, the Pantheon, the Colosseum, all rise from the earth like marble dreams. The streets are swept daily. The vigils, a fire brigade and night watch, keep order. Grain is distributed. Gladiators entertain in the arena, though not all Romans approve of such spectacles. Philosophy thrives. The Stoics, especially, gain favor among the elite. They preach calm, duty, and self-mastery. Do not waste time, writes Seneca, tutor to Nero. It is the one thing we cannot return. Art, literature, and science blossom. Galen writes medical treatises, Pliny catalogues the world's wonders, Roman maps, while flawed, show a curiosity that stretches far beyond their borders, yet even in peace, shadows linger. Slavery remains, a pillar of the economy. Revolts occur, most famously the uprising of Spartacus a century earlier, but they are brutally crushed. The divide between rich and poor widens. Women, though powerful in private life, remain excluded from formal politics, and religion slowly begins to change. Most Romans still worship Jupiter, Juno, Mars, Minerva, and a host of household gods known as Lares. Temples are everywhere, but in quiet corners of the empire, new faiths stir, Mithraism, the Isis cult, and growing, slowly Christianity. But let us not rush ahead. For now let us return to a quiet Roman garden. The air is cooling. A servant lights an oil lamp shaped like a dolphin. A mother reads her son a passage from Livy's histories. The cicadas hum gently. The Pax Romana is not perfect, but it is rare a moment when the world, vast and diverse, moved under one banner. As we drift forward, we will explore how this peace began to unravel, and how emperors, once wise and cautious, grew reckless. But rest now. Let the sound of sandals on stone fade from your thoughts. Let the Roman night fall gently. The Pax Romana, that rare and luminous peace, does not last forever. By the 3rd century CE, cracks begin to spread through the marble foundations of the Roman Empire. The signs are quiet at first: border skirmishes, rising taxes, corrupt governors. But over time, the weight becomes unbearable. The empire, vast, magnificent, and stretched thin, begins to bend. Let us begin with the crisis of the 3rd century, a period marked not by one catastrophe, but by dozens. Between 235 and 284 CE, over 20 emperors rise and fall, most of them dying violently. Some are assassinated by their own guards. Others perish in battle. A few reign for mere months. The Roman legions, once loyal to the state, now answer to the highest bidder. Generals declare themselves emperors. Provinces break away, like the Gallic Empire in the west and the Palmyrene Empire in the east. Rome is no longer a city of marble, it is a city of tension. And the enemies at the borders grow bolder. Germanic tribes, the Goths, Franks, Alemanni, press across the Rhine and Danube. In the east, the Sassanid Persians defeat Roman armies, and even capture the Emperor Valerian, an event so shocking it ripples across the empire like thunder. But Rome does not fall yet. Not entirely. In 284 CE, a soldier named Diocletian becomes emperor. He is practical, stern, and determined to restore order. His solution is bold. He divides the empire into 2 administrative halves, east and west, each ruled by its own emperor. This system, called the Tetrarchy, aims to bring stability. The east, with its wealthy cities like Alexandria and Antioch, thrives. The west, poorer and more rural, struggles. But for a time, the division works. Diocletian reforms the tax system, fortifies the frontiers, and less admirably begins the great persecution of Christians. Churches are destroyed. Scriptures are burned. Thousands are arrested, some martyred. But the faith, quietly and stubbornly, survives in the early 4th century. A new emperor emerges from the chaos, Constantine the Great. His rise is dramatic. After years of war and political maneuvering, he defeats his rivals at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312 CE. Legend tells us he saw a vision in the sky, a cross, with the words in hoc signo vinces, and this sign, conquer. Constantine does something extraordinary. He legalizes Christianity with the Edict of Milan in 313 CE. No longer a fringe movement, Christianity becomes increasingly central to Roman identity. Bishops gain influence. Churches are built. In 330 CE, Constantine founds a new capital, Constantinople, today's Istanbul. Positioned on the Bosporus, it is a bridge between Europe and Asia. With strong walls, strategic ports, and imperial backing, it soon outshines Rome itself. But while the East strengthens, the Western Empire begins to falter. The economy suffers. Coinage is debased. Trade routes weaken. Urban life declines. Villas are abandoned. Roads, once straight and proud, crumble into dust. And then the migrations begin. From the Eurasian steppes come the Huns, fierce horsemen who displace tribes in their path. In fear, these tribes, Visigoths, Ostrogoths, Vandals, push into Roman territory, not always as invaders, but often as refugees. Rome, increasingly unable to defend its borders, allows some tribes to settle within, but tensions rise. In 378 CE, at the Battle of Adrianople, the Eastern Roman army faces a crushing defeat. The Emperor Valens is killed. It is the first time in centuries that a Roman army is so thoroughly destroyed by a foreign enemy, and the pressure continues. In 410 CE, the unthinkable happens. The Visigoths, under Alaric, sack the city of Rome. For Romans, this is a spiritual wound. The city, eternal, invincible, sacred, has been violated. Though the damage is less physical than symbolic, the psychological blow is profound. The Western Empire, now fragile, limps on. In 455 CE, the Vandals sack Rome again. In 476 CE, a Germanic general named Odoacer deposes the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus. The imperial regalia is sent east, to Constantinople, and just like that, the Western Roman Empire, after more than 1,000 years of history, ceases to exist. But let us pause here. This was not the sudden fall of a great tower, but the slow erosion of a coastline. The Western Empire did not vanish overnight. Roman law, language, and culture lingered for centuries. The Church, now centered in Rome, preserved Latin texts, rituals, and memory. In Britain, former Roman towns became ruins overgrown with ivy. In Gaul, Roman roads guided medieval knights. In Spain, Latin evolved into Spanish. The empire was gone, but its bones remained beneath every field, every chapel, every word spoken across Europe. As for the Eastern Roman Empire, it endures. Known later as the Byzantine Empire, it will shine for another 1,000 years, preserving Greek and Roman knowledge through war, plague, and time. But for now, let us return to the quiet streets of Rome. The temples are silent, the forums are cracked. Ivy winds through broken arches, and yet, in a small house, by the Tiber, a child reads by candlelight. His book is Virgil, his language is Latin, and through him, the empire whispers onward. Rest now. Let the echoes of decline lull you gently. We are not yet done, for in our final chapter we will explore how Rome, though conquered, still lives, in law, in thought, in stone. The Roman Empire, as a political entity, is gone. Its legions disbanded. Its emperors lost to time. The marble crumbles, the statues weather, and yet Rome is not dead. It never truly dies. It lives in our words, our laws, our cities, our thoughts. It lingers in silence beneath the surface of the modern world. Let us now drift gently through these legacies, as if through an echoing atrium. Moonlight falling on tile. Begin with language. Latin, the language of the Romans, does not vanish. It evolves, like a river dividing into many streams. From it come the Romance languages: Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Romanian, all bearing the rhythms of Rome. Even English, though Germanic in root, is laced with Latin. Words like justice, victory, honor, empire, and memory, all Roman, all familial. Scholars speak Latin for centuries. Priests chanted in cathedrals. Scientists name the stars and bones in Latin syllables. It is the ghost tongue of Europe, quiet but enduring now. Drift toward law. Rome was not just a conqueror of land, but of structure. Its legal system, Roman law, becomes the foundation for countless nations. Ideas like innocent until proven guilty, contracts, property rights, citizenship, and legal precedent are all Roman inventions, refined across centuries. Even today, many European legal codes are descendants of the Justinian Code, compiled in Constantinople long after the fall of the West. The idea that the state, not a king, upholds justice, that law stands above rulers, is a Roman notion, passed quietly to the modern world. And what of architecture? Roman arches, domes, columns, we see them still. In Washington, D.C., in Paris, in Berlin, and London. The U.S. Capitol echoes the Pantheon. Train stations mimic basilicas, courthouses and museums rise with marble columns, as if seeking the stability and grace Rome once offered. Roman engineering principles remain. Concrete road design, aqueduct systems, bridges, many still in use today, arch gently over rivers in France, Spain, and Turkey, stone threads connecting ancient and modern life. Now listen for Rome in philosophy and government, the stoic calm of Marcus Aurelius, the political theory of Cicero, the satire of Juvenal all shape the Western intellectual tradition. The very idea of a republic, with a senate and elected officials, is Roman, though flawed in practice. This structure inspires the architects of modern democracies. In the Renaissance, artists and scholars resurrect Roman ideals. Michelangelo studies Roman statues. Petrarch reads Roman poets. Humanism, with its reverence for the individual and the civic mind, flows directly from Roman streams. In the Enlightenment, Rome becomes model and warning. Its republic admired, its empire feared. Founders of the United States read Livy and Tacitus, hoping to learn how to build a government that might endure. Now, gently consider religion. Christianity, once persecuted by emperors, becomes the empire's own faith. The Church inherits not just Rome's language, but its structure, bishops, councils, titles, rituals. The Pope, seated in Rome, becomes a new kind of emperor, spiritual, not military. The Vatican rises above the ancient ruins, built from their very stones. And Christian theology, shaped in Roman cities like Carthage, Antioch, and Alexandria, spreads through monasteries, cathedrals, and schools for centuries. But beyond these legacies, beyond law and stone and scripture, there is something subtler, a sense of order, a yearning for stability. The Roman mind was one of categorization, of building roads not only through landscapes, but through thought. They recorded, they measured, they named the stars, mapped the seas, counted the days, even the modern calendar, with its Julius Caesar months, and August in honor of the first emperor is Roman. We live in their time, quite literally, and yet, there is melancholy, too. Rome reminds us that even the greatest systems fade, that wealth and power, no matter how immense, are mortal, that peace is precious, that no civilization is eternal in stone, only in memory. So as we end, let us return to that gentle image. The empire has fallen. The eagle's standards are gone. The baths are cold. The amphitheaters are empty. But in a quiet library in Florence, or Paris, or Istanbul, a scholar bends over a parchment. The words are Latin, the thoughts Roman. The ink dries slowly. Let your thoughts wander now through that ancient city once more. The Tiber flows steadily. The aqueduct hums. In the distance, a bell rings, not from a Roman temple, but from a Christian church built upon one. The empire is no longer here, and yet in language, in law, in the shape of our buildings and the shape of our thoughts it lives. Rome is not a place, it is a pattern. And in the stillness of night, if you listen carefully, you can still hear its quiet conquest.